All right, guys, on this episode of the Old Boy Podcast, I am joined by Josh Nicodemus, Josh of all trades on Instagram. You can check him out there. Josh has an amazing story. He started out learning the trades, being more of a general contractor, then jumped into the remodeling business. From there, got into real estate investing, flipping houses, keeping some rentals, those type of things. And now has also started to supplement that by, guess what? Getting back in the remodeling business. We talk about culture. We talk about how to keep your crew happy, how to keep a healthy crew, and all things in between. This guy was a real wealth of knowledge when it came to small business, how to run it. We talk about things involving cash flow. If you're a business owner or potential business owner, you don't want to miss this episode. Enjoy.
Man, do you hear that? Look at here. They're coming. They're coming. We're going to have a party. I'm talking good on barbecue.
All right, guys, welcome to this edition of the Old Boy Podcast. And I have the pleasure of being joined by I want to say two-time entrepreneur, because you've very successfully remodeling business and now as a real estate investor. Josh Nicodemus, how are you, Josh?
Hey, man, I'm good. How are you?
Good. And obviously Josh is known on social as Josh of all trades, and definitely very talented. If you aren't following him, I think you will be after this discussion. Josh, you're a Northwest Florida guy. I'm a Central Florida guy. What part of Northwest Florida are you in?
Oh, nice, man. That's cool. I didn't realize we were that close. Yeah, we're near Destin.
Okay.
So I always tell people like halfway between Panama City and Pensacola, because some people don't know Destin, but
yeah. I was just in Gulf Shores cooking for the SEC equipment managers.
Sweet.
And then we've got a good buddy, Spencer, that works at the Hilton there in Destin. So try to get up once or twice a year there and check him out. So love that area.
Nice.
Good area for what you're doing too. Great area.
It's red hot, dude. Yeah, no doubt.
Absolutely. So, Josh, talk to me a little bit about, I know the first business you got into was remodeling, and I guess we can talk about some of the differences, but where did your love and construction skills come from? Was it your grandfather and your father? Was it kind of a lineage thing or something you just picked up on early and kind of started investing in yourself?
Yeah, that's a great question. Wasn't so much something I picked up from my father or my grandfather or anything like that. Although I did do projects with my dad as a kid, and my dad he was always working on something. So yeah, I had my hands in it at a pretty young age. But I didn't really start taking interest in it until I was probably 17. Started working just a job out of high school. So, my mom was doing the payroll for a company, a local remodeling company. She did that for years and years. And one time she said, hey, look, they're looking for some help for the summer. And so I didn't have anything else, any other jobs lined up. So I did it. And then, of course that was brutal. It's terrible, when you're the new guy with no experience, fresh meat. And so, yeah, they beat the crap out of me that summer. But I made through. And then when I started to learn a little bit more, and long story short, I decided that I liked working with my hands enough that I didn't want to go to college. I did a couple years at college on the side, but then I realized it just wasn't for me. And so just kind of slowly fell in love with it over time as I started to learn. Of course, you hated it at first because you're the one digging ditches and doing all the backbreaking stuff. And then as time goes on, you get to learn a little bit more, and you get to kind of get a little better choice of work. And so it was kind of a slow thing for me, but eventually, by the time I was 17, by the time I was 18, 19, I was pretty committed to sticking with it. So
I love it. How was it? Because, I think you're younger than me, but we're similar in age. And that's kind of a tough decision to make, because we kind of grew up in that era of like, if you don't go to college, you're going to be huffing paint behind an advanced auto parts.
Exactly, man.
That was potentially with no shorts on. It's just that mindset. But then to be strong enough and know that you loved it enough to go, you know what, I'm going to work with my hands and I know I can be successful, is a pretty big leap when that's kind of the common mindset, of folks at that point in time.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was tough because, at the time I was the only person I knew, like out of my whole friend group, right? You know, when you're in high school, you've got this group of friends, most of us. And I was the only one that wasn't going off to get a college degree. And, you know, none of my buddies really like said anything to me or like looked down on me that I knew of. But other people did. And like their parents would say stuff. My parents would say stuff. And like, you sure you don't want to go? Like they didn't press on me real hard. But it was.
You don't have to go to the big college. You can go to community college. Let's just get our foot in the door, Josh. You'll be okay, buddy.
Exactly. It's this thing where it's like, it was just expected. Like at that time, you know, whatever it was, 20 years, 25 years ago, whatever, you know, everybody just expected you were going to college. Like, you're going to be a loser if you don't. And so that was kind of a tough stigma to break back then. I think, I don't know, you tell me how you feel. I feel like it's gotten better over time. People are kind of, that's not so much the deal anymore.
Yep. I feel like there's enough, you know, self-made millionaire stories of people that have worked blue collar that, yeah, it doesn't have the stigma. And I think the other thing is, like, we've turned into such a gig economy, right? Like, even if you do have a white collar job, there's more than likely on nights and weekends you're doing something that's blue collar ish. It may not be like a hardcore construction trade, but you know, it could be, you know, drop shipping stuff or whatever, you know, something that's got a little bit of work and grit to it.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And so a couple of years ago, my mom pulled me aside and apologized to me. She's like, look, I'm so sorry that I didn't support you in the beginning. But she's seen what we've been able to build. And, of course, everybody supports you later. And she didn't meant the best for me, right? So it's not like
Absolutely.
She was back or anything. But she, you know, she apologized. She's like, I'm so sorry. I didn't, you know, support that at first. And so, yeah.
While she was eating a Wagyu ribeye off of fine china. That's cool though, that she could recognize it and come back and say, you know, hey, you know, you did good. Because I think that's something, especially when you've been close with your parents, like you can look at the bank account, you can look at successful things, but just your parents looking in the eye and saying, you know what, I'm proud of you. That goes a lot longer than any bank balance, in my opinion.
No, totally agree. Yeah, no, it means something, you know, for sure.
So when you decided, you know, hey, I'm going down this path, I'm going to work with my hands, you know, late teens, early 20s, did you have kind of that mindset of trying, was there something specifically you liked, or was it something to where you're like, you know what, long term, I think I want to do something bigger picture, so I'm going to try to learn as much about what I can and go from there?
Yeah, so the company that I worked for was kind of a general remodeling business. So we did everything from kitchens, bathrooms, basements, additions, you know, building garages, all kinds of stuff. And so I liked that about it. Like I never wanted to go into one trade and really stick in that one trade. There have been times where I was tempted to do that, you know, where I looked at the electricians, like they got it pretty good, like they, you know, or whatever, or the plumbers or et cetera. But what I really enjoyed about doing that work and still do is that it's something different every day, and I get to learn kind of a little bit all of it. And then I can sub out the stuff that if I really don't like it, I can sub it out. And so, yeah, that's kind of like the big benefit to me, was kind of being a general contractor where I can kind of get my hands in all of it. Every day is different. So yeah, I never kind of leaned one direction or another. And I kind of followed in the footsteps of my mentor, who was, you know, my first boss, who was very successful and, you know, but also very humble. You know, I always appreciated that. The guy was making multiple millions of dollars a year, and would just show up on the job site in his boots and pick up a broom or a shovel or whatever it took. And he never was too good to do anything that we were doing.
I love it.
You know, so that inspired me, and I've tried to mimic that in my business as well.
How do you make that leap from going and working for him to kind of doing your own thing? And were you kind of doing some moonlighting to lead to that, or how did that whole scenario go down?
Yeah, 100%. You know, I kind of started taking on side jobs on nights and weekends and stuff to kind of get my feet wet, and that's really honestly where I learned a lot of stuff. I learned a lot of extra things. I learned lessons the hard way that way. I lost some money on jobs, you know, underbid stuff. And so, yeah, man, just in the beginning, it was like every night and every weekend I was out there hustling, doing extra stuff. But I got used to kind of, talking to customers and how to present my proposal and how to price things out, and made a lot of mistakes. But, that was kind of like the beginning of it. And then, 7 years in, after doing this for 7 years, I was like, all right, I've done all this. I've managed every type of project at this point. And that was when we decided we were ready to meet. My business partner and I, he was my helper, at that same company. But he was studying design, and he knew how to do all the CAD drawings and all that kind of stuff. So he and I partnered up and left after about 7 years of working at that company. So,
it's interesting when you started talking about picking up side jobs. I think back to my early barbecue days too. And I always would tell people, like, you're when you make those screw ups, whether it be underbidding a job, or I can remember like it was yesterday, like taking like $800 worth of food out to an event to sell and not looking at the weather forecast.
Oh yeah.
And dude, you think ribs are good. You don't want to eat $800 worth of ribs over the next 6 months out of your freezer. Like, it sucks. But I call that investing in yourself and investing in your business, because if you don't make those screw ups, you'll never learn from them. You'll never get better. Yeah. And it seems like that's kind of the same approach you took. Was like, oh boy, F that one up. Let's lean in and figure out how not to do that again.
Exactly, man. And it's, and there's so many things in this business. We're so diverse in what we do, that there's a lot of lessons to be learned. You know what I mean? It's not like, a lot of times with there's still a lot of lessons you could learn in just one trade. Like, let's say it's electrical work, but when you're doing so many different things, so many different types of projects all over our house, different stuff, there's a lot of lessons to be learned, and a lot of mistakes that we make and have made, and I continue to make. I'm not going to pretend like I still don't make mistakes and underbid things or miss stuff. It still happens, but yeah, that's where the best lessons are learned, for sure.
What was there something when you got into the business that, like, somebody called you up and was like, hey man, I need a bathroom remodel, or I need a kitchen remodel? Was there something you got more excited about doing, just something you were more comfortable with or enjoyed the creativity of, or kind of all of it was the same? It was, rehab, remodel work.
Yeah. I really like all of it. Yeah. It was never really one thing that I loved more than another. Maybe there's a soft spot in my heart for kitchens. I do kind of really like doing a kitchen, because it's a pretty stark night and day difference before and after.
Yeah.
Just maybe like doing windows and doors. They're not as the before and after is not so much of a big difference sometimes. So yeah, kitchens are kind of one of my favorite things to do. But I mean, I love all of it. I really do. I'll take any of it, over sitting at a desk for me,
Absolutely. More remodel, less spreadsheets.
Right, dude. That's it. Sitting all day at this desk, cranking away at spreadsheets. I want to pull my hair out. What a little I have left. So yeah, I'd much rather be out strapping on the tools.
Absolutely. When you and when you and your partner get started, is it just you and him? Did you guys hire a couple of helpers, or kind of like, hey, we got to bootstrap this thing, get it rolling, and then as we get an opportunity, we'll find people we really trust and bring them on board?
Yeah, that's pretty much what happened. It was he and I at first, and that didn't last long. And we hired on 2 guys within the first few months, and then 2 more and 2 more and 2 more. So, we grew pretty quick. Within the first couple of years, I think we were up to 10 or 12 guys, and a whole bunch of trucks on the road, and a lot of mistakes being made there as well. So we kind of grew rapidly and a little too quick, and that cost us.
Well, let me ask you this, because I think this is one place where trades folks sometimes it's a challenge. Is you're really, really good at your, I used to say it when I worked at Publix, just because Susie was the best bakery manager doesn't mean she should oversee 650 bakeries, right?
100%.
So I feel like when it comes to, blue collar folks, you're really, really good at your skill. But then when it comes to hanging a shingle, hiring people, getting insurance, all the shit you have to do to run a business, that can be one of the huge challenges. What do you say you've learned from that first batch of people you hired to the way that you hire and staff now?
Yeah, it's the age old saying, right? Like hire slow and fire quickly. And I believe in that. I believe take your time when you're hiring. But the other big thing that I'm a firm believer in is hire for attitude more than skill set.
Yeah, you can teach skills.
That's right, man. The skills can be learned, but if you get somebody in there with bad attitude, that is infectious.
Cancer.
And it is a cancer, big time. And I've let guys stay in my companies for too long, and they've eroded the culture of my company. And the other guys hated coming to work because of that one guy. And I'm like, man, I got rid of that guy years ago. So yeah, keeping culture up. And in hiring, I go off the vibe of the person, more than their experience. Like, hey, can I hang out with this guy after work and grab a beer? Or, is this guy going to be cool at a company outing? Like, that makes a big difference, because a lot of our guys' happiness is directly related to who they're working with, right?
Sure.
And their energy, they feed off of each other. So, yeah, that's a big thing,
Well, and I think too, you use the term culture, and I think it's a very solid term. And a lot of people think, oh, they're saying culture, that's for big corporations, that's for, big size or businesses. No, man, like, yes, it's very important in big businesses, and as businesses scale, yes, culture, has to stay true, or that brand starts to take, an impact, a negative impact. But culture is just as powerful in 4, 8, 12, 20 people operations. Some would even say more, because you spend a hell of a lot more time with somebody. If I'm in a company with 700, 800 people and I think a couple people don't have the culture, guess what? I just fucking avoid them. But right. If you have a very small group and one person isn't part of the culture, well, now you've got 10, 15% of your whole workforce just in one person that can help start bringing the rest of them down.
Big time. Yeah, big time. I totally agree with that. We focus a lot on culture, and like you said, I mean, in smaller companies, it's, I think, just as, if not more important. So there's some things we do to try to keep that up. We take off, once a month or once every other month, and try to, knock off early on a Friday and go get drinks or go out on a boat or whatever and have some meetings. We once a year, every year we go up to the mountains and spend a weekend in a cabin with our whole crew and kind of talk about our goals for the next year. And not just business goals, but like personal goals. Like, hey, what are your fitness goals, right? Or what are you want to date your wife more, or make more money, or whatever it is, buy that house or vehicle. And so we kind of all talk about it, and it opens everybody up to what we have going on in each other's lives, and it draws us closer together, and it helps us understand, like, hey, I understand why that guy acts that way, or he's
what he's going through.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, we try to foster culture, in our business as much as possible. And it's always been really important to us.
I got to say, it seems like with that approach, you probably have some pretty significant tenured folks that have worked with you.
We do. Two of my guys, my business partner and my brother, are those original two guys that came to work with me in my first business in the remodeling company. And I'm partnered now with my brother-in-law, who was one of those guys. So he's been with me for 12 years. And my other brother had been with me for 12 years up until last week, and he's gone off to start his own company. So I set him off with a blessing, of course. But
yeah, of course.
But yeah, the guys that I've had with it, and then, other guys, a lot of my crew are family, and they've been with me a long time. So, 5+ years now.
I love that.
So yeah, we work real hard to keep them and try to make it pleasant for them, pleasant place for them to work, and place where they can, look forward to bigger opportunities as well.
Well, and the location's not bad either.
No, it's hard. Hard to beat that.
Except for spring break time of year and all the squatted trucks show up, but we'll leave that for another podcast. Proud sponsor of the show, Trollco Clothing. Love what the brand's about. It's all about supporting that blue-collar worker. You know them for their trademark shirt and hat, dirty hands, clean money. It's not just a slogan. It is a lifestyle. Go visit trollcoclothing.com and use my discount code Old Boy Podcast for 15% off. So talk to me a little bit about that transition from, strictly remodeling to more of, and I would take it, and please correct me if I'm wrong here. So instead of just handling the remodeling in this second company, you were looking more at, let me acquire some real estate. Let's put our assets to use, and then more of a kind of flip or hold and rent kind of situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So in 2016, I was dealing with some bad customers at the time, and like really tough customers. And so I got kind of fed up with, I loved the work I was doing, but I hated the people I was doing it for. So I said, you know what if we could keep doing this, but on properties we own instead of properties, instead of for a customer, you can make all the decisions and we can rehab these properties and do whatever. So I started studying real estate like that and trying to understand how to find the money, how to acquire deals. And so by the end of 2016, I started flipping houses, and I liked it so much at that time that I was up in Maryland at that time, and I wanted to move down here to this area. So I sold my half of that first company to my business partner at the time in 2018 and moved down here. And so we've been flipping houses full time and buying rental properties for the last, 6 years, I guess, up until recently when we actually reopened the remodeling business again. So we're kind of back into it again, and which is exciting. I'm happy we're doing it. But so now we're going to do a little bit of both.
Nice.
But yeah, so yeah, buying rental properties and flipping houses, and it's all the same type of work. It's not different on the work side. It's just logistics. So.
I think one of the interesting things that people have to think about, and I'm sure obviously you did, when moving into that portion of the business, is you still got a crew to pay, right? And so on a remodel, the window may be like this, but when you're doing like a full flip, there could be months where these guys are still pulling a weekly paycheck, and you've got to cover that. And you've got to be, cash flow to me when it comes to flipping houses, besides your crew and your quality of workmanship, that has to be one of the top things you have to be really diligent in managing.
Yes, absolutely. And that's why it's really important as a business owner to not overspend, to not overpay yourself. I'm a big believer in that. Of course, everybody wants to make good money. You got to be really careful not to draw and suck your whole business bank account dry because you want to buy a new truck, or you want to buy a new house, or you want to, live this flashy lifestyle that yes, you probably can afford to live, but contractors are notoriously bad at saving for a rainy day, and contractors are notoriously bad at taking, this next project's money and paying off the last project, and this just constantly being behind, right? So we've been really careful, and I have made that mistake. I'm not saying I haven't. I've made that mistake, and that kind of scarred me to where I like my business partner and I take very modest salaries. We could take very healthy salaries, but we don't. We take very modest salaries, and we try to keep as much invested in the company as possible, so that way we're ready for a rainy day. Mm-hmm. And that mentality has saved us a few times where we got into something tough, or something didn't sell, as fast, or we ran into problems. Because we're carrying, 10 guys at a time, and, that's expensive. It costs a lot per month when you're flipping houses, you don't, there's no monthly payments coming in,
right.
There's a big chunk at the end when you sell it. Mm-hmm. But then you're relying on that house to sell. And we've had many, instances where, okay, closing day is coming up, and then bam, something falls through, and, you're back on the market, and I'm like, crap, what do we do now?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's, being wise with your money and putting stuff aside. And, I always tell people too, like, if you're in business for yourself, look, when it's early, it's going to be difficult, but later, as you become more established, look for your lines of credit, to have available to you, but look for them when you don't need them. Don't look for them when you do. So
yeah, that's a very good point, because more than likely when you're looking for them when you need them, there's probably other people, whether it be a macro economy thing or what's going on, but and not being under a rush, right? Not waiting, oh my God, I got to see if I get this line of credit to pull the trigger on this deal. having all that set up, knowing what your boundaries are, knowing, all the rules of engagement, and just having that in your back pocket, it can be an opportunity to catapult you into something new, or just, fight a little bit above your current weight class.
Yep. 100%. Yeah. That's important. And banks can smell desperation. So you don't want to go in there when you need it. You want to go in there when you've got, some decent money in your bank account, and you say, look, I don't really need this right now. I just want to have it for, future growth or something.
Yep.
That makes sense.
That's a very good point. When it comes to flip and rental houses, I know I've got a couple of buddies that have been in the business for a bit. I know some guys kind of have a formula. They like a 3-2, under 2,000 square feet kind of place. Are you one of those folks? Are you kind of looking at each opportunity independently as far as what's it cost? What am I dealing with? What can I get out of it kind of deal? Or is there something is there a sweet spot you like to focus on?
Yeah, kind of the latter of those two options. We don't really have like an exact formula where we're like, hey, we only buy 3-bed, 2-bath or something like that, or only this area. We kind of anything within like a 45-minute drive we'll entertain. And then, as far as that goes, like we just we look at it from like, all right, does this make more sense as a rental property or as a flip? It depends on where we are with cash flow and projects for the guys. The one thing I try to stay within, like for flips, is I try to stay in the median price range for our area. So, I've done a few that were pretty expensive and they sold and it was fine, but like, I don't want to get caught with my pants down with like a $2 million house. You know what I mean? It's just it's a little risky, for the size company we are. So we try to stay in that like 300 to 450 kind of price range, just because that's like what the average. We're surrounded by military bases, and so that's kind of the average military family can kind of afford. And so that's kind of our sweet spot in that sense.
And I would bet right now, a lot of people may not know, but I know especially down here in Central Florida, I'm sure where you're at, it's not much different. Finding somewhere nice to rent, just inside of a decent ballpark. I'm not going to say a deal because there's not a deal to be found out there, but like the rental market here, it's super tight. Do you guys see the same thing up in North Florida?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's crazy. And people tell us all the time. My brother manages our rental properties for us. He's our in-house property manager. And, we just rented out one of our ugliest rental properties, like tenant turnover. And I think it's just, place needs to be gutted out. It's just not great. And the lady that rented it, she's like, this is the nicest rental house I've ever been in. And I was like, okay, well, I'm glad you love it. You know what I mean? But like, that's what the rental properties in our area, the competition is just not great. I mean, they're either in really bad condition or they're overpriced. So landlords are not known for taking care of their stuff. And it's not hard to compete as far as having the nicest property in the neighborhood in some of these places. But
where would you say, and you've got a lot of experience, so maybe you have to kind of go back to your earlier days. Where do you say, like in a remodel or a flip, what area of the house or something you can work on that can kind of turn into a money pit that you may not be seeing right off the bat? And I know each one's different, but is there anything where you're like, I've gotten bit by that a couple times, I'm really going to double check?
Yeah, there's a few things. For us, and it might be more of a local thing than national, but like for us, it's like wiring and plumbing can be a big deal. So, and what a lot of it is like it's insurance driven. So you're being from Florida, you probably know this, but a lot of people don't understand this. But like Florida homeowners insurance has gone crazy. It's tripled for a lot of us, and so and what they're requiring has just gotten off. It's gone off the chain. So like roofing, basically if we don't know how old it is, it's getting replaced. If it's more than 12 years old, it's getting replaced. And people think that's crazy, but roof, in our area of Florida, at least, if your roof is more than 15 years old, you cannot get insurance. Yep. And which just seems insane to me, but, yeah, so we pay attention to roofing because I've bought a lot of houses where I thought the roof was going to be okay. And then the inspection came up and they're like, nah, it's not, we don't know how old it is, You know, or stuff that has like aluminum wiring. A lot of, you know, they take aluminum wiring pretty seriously around here. And there's a lot of it around here.
Mm-hmm.
So we, you know, we end up rewiring houses where I'm like, I wasn't planning on that, but I guess we're doing it. You know, stuff like that. And then in the grand scheme, like just major renovations where we're removing walls and putting in beams and stuff like that. There's always unforeseen stuff, you know, behind the walls that costs a lot of time.
Yep.
So
I was looking back at a couple of well, and let me ask you this: when did the social media account come around, and were you looking at it as more for marketing? Like, how does the account start, and what was kind of your reasoning?
To be honest, I mean, I started with like Facebook, and I was pretty late to the game. Like everybody I knew had Facebook by the time I joined. I was like, that's stupid. And so I was kind of late getting into it, and I guess curiosity got the best of me, and I started a Facebook account in, I don't know, 2012 or something like that. And I didn't start Instagram until a few years ago. It's not, my Instagram's not that old. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I liked watching other videos, and like what I really liked about Instagram, especially, was like learning from other tradespeople. So, you know, kind of like when you're learning a trade, or you're learning trades, multiple trades, like I do, you only have the influences in front of you. So that's going to be the people you work with, unless you're good about like going on YouTube and learning stuff. Following tradesmen was like a really easy way for me to learn other trades, guys like, you know, e-tile, and, you know, there's all these other trades, and they're all electricians and plumbers, and you can learn so much, like kind of accidentally, just by watching them. So that was kind of the big draw, was just following other guys that were like at the top of their game. It was never really a marketing thing. And still really isn't. I don't really think of it that way. I'm sure there are benefits to it, of course, but it's not, that's not the main drive for it behind it, for me, at least.
Yeah, no, it's not like you watch one of your videos and you see, you know, you're finishing up with a card that has "contact me here." You know what I mean? Like, no, it's all very organic. And I'll tell you were saying earlier that, you know, you really didn't have one specific discipline you wanted to go after when you were getting into this. You kind of wanted to be more, you know, GC. Buddy, I saw some of them videos of your son running some of that wire. Hey, he may be great at everything, but I think if that old boy wants to fall back on being an electrician, he's going to be all right, man. It was pretty cool watching him get those couple of receptacles wired up, man. He was quick.
Yeah, man, he's a good kid, and he's smart. So I think, and he tells me he wants to do what I do. So we'll see if he wants to be kind of the general like I do, or if he niches off into one thing. Either way, I don't care. And I've never tried to push my kids into doing what I do. My youngest daughter is obsessed with it. She's always asking help. And so, you know, people on the internet are like, force your kids to work. I'm like, dude, I've never asked my kids to work. Like, they are begging me when I get home, like, hey, what are we doing tonight? What are we doing this weekend?
You're like, Dad's been working all day, damn it.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, I don't want to do anything tonight. I'm tired. And so, yeah, my daughter sleeps with a DeWalt Impact driver under her pillow. And I'm not even kidding. That's what she got for her birthday, because that's what she wanted, and she sleeps with it under her pillow.
That is freaking adorable. How old is she?
She's 8.
That's so cool.
It's a mess, man. They're a mess, and you know, some of them have interest in. I have 4 kids, so 2 boys and 2 girls, and the oldest and the youngest have a little bit of interest, and the 2 middle ones are kind of not so much. So we'll see, you know, if either of them do anything with it.
Yeah, but that's cool. I mean, worst case, at least they've learned some life skills. You know what I mean? They want to do some stuff around their house one day. At least they know how to do the basics, and you can't ask for much more than that.
No, 100%. I mean, and it could be a great way for you to learn what you don't like to do too. You know, my brother-in-law did asphalt for a summer, and he always talks about it. He's like, dude, that just showed me how much I wanted to sit at a desk. And I'm like, hey, for you, you know, if that's what made you interested in doing that, then that's cool. You know, everybody's different.
No, I completely agree. I always tell the story. My grandpa really wanted me to take over the family roofing business. Mm-hmm. After one summer of doing that, I had to let Pops know that that roofing business probably wasn't getting taken over by this family member. but hey, I learned a lot in that month, in that summer, and it was, I'll do anything but roof.
Dude, I'm with you. Roofing is hard work. Your back, your feet. Like, I got big respect for all y'all out there that are roofing full time.
Absolutely. Same here. That goes times two, because, just getting the shingles up, and and then back in those days, man, it was tar. Like you were carrying hot tar up there. Oh boy, I'm not real ladder built to start with, even by my thinner younger days. I just wasn't trying to get as high as I can with molten lava in a bucket that I'm dragging up, hoping I don't get it all over me. And in Florida on top of it too. So it was like, you're in the dog days of summer. I will never forget, like 2:30 in the afternoon, just looking around like, when is this thunderstorm coming? Because I'm ready to get the hell off of this roof.
Please send it out. I know exactly what you're doing.
Too funny.
Yeah, my first summer, man, I remember going in, and it was like the beginning of the week, and I walked in with my tool belt in my hand, and my boss, I showed up, and he's like, "You ain't gonna need that today." And I was like, "Okay." He's like, "Get a pair of gloves and something to wipe the sweat off your brow." And that was it, man. We were digging holes, digging in the summer, and big trenches and stuff. So, yeah, everybody's going to have that experience.
Man, I did, I think I was 15, maybe 16. Another summer I did, for the DOT, one of their subcontractors, I did the whole drive-in silt fence. Ooh, buddy. I was like, man, well, maybe I can work up to being the ditch witch guy by the end of summer. No, did not. I was just the strong-backed young man that slung a sledgehammer for about 10 hours a day. And I remember, Josh, the best part of it was, like, I got paid $4.85 an hour for regular work. But when we did DOT, we got $6.60 an hour. And I'm like, oh, shit, yeah, man. Put me on all them DOT jobs, old boy. I want that premium. But that was some hard ass work. But I feel like too, like that builds character. That makes any other work you do in the future like doesn't seem nearly as hard. You know what I mean? You know how shitty that was. You don't want to go back to it.
It makes everything else feel easy after that.
Exactly. And I just I feel like when you approach it more that way, it's sometimes very beneficial to do something pretty shitty just so you don't want to do it again.
Yeah, I know. I totally agree 100% there. There's a lot of memories that are kind of ingrained in the back of my mind of things that I had to do that I was like, man, that one time, that was terrible. But be grateful that I'm not doing that every day,
Yes.
And, it builds character, like you said, for sure.
So, one of the things that I know that you're big on, and I think it's awesome, and, and kind of giving back to the trades and continue to help folks that are in the same line of work as you. And I know you love to do mentorship. Talk to me a little bit about how you got into that and kind of what that entails.
Yeah, I mostly for me now, what it entails is really just being active in the DMs, because I get questions all the time. And, I never wanted to be that guy that wouldn't respond to people. So, I get young guys hitting me up all the time asking, hey, how did you get started? What do you recommend I do here? I'm thinking about, I want to do what you do, or I want to be an electrician or something else, and asking for advice. So, I will have pretty lengthy conversations with guys on a regular basis, and girls, whoever's interested in learning about this stuff. But I try to, be pretty open, and accessible through that. And so that's a big part of it. And then of course, I don't know what you mean by mentorship in the sense that like, if you mean like that with like strangers, or of course mentorship, young guys that work for me as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's that piece to it as well. So trying to steer these guys in a direction, whether they're going to work for me forever, or they're going to go off and do their own thing, or whether they're going to be blue collar, or whether they're going to go, whether it's just a summer job. Like two of my nephews are working for me right now. And they're probably, I think they're like 16 and 18 or 19. They're young, you're really young. So kind of, teaching them everything I can teach them in the time they're with me, and whether or not they stay, I don't know, but just kind of making it a pleasant but hard experience for them.
Yes, sir.
And so, yeah. And, just being a good guy to work for, and trying to make it reasonable, but difficult. you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, what you do is difficult. I mean, like you said, every day you walk in, it's a little bit something different. You're hitting the same, skill sets that you're trying to hone, but you go through that wall. Not all what's behind it's not always the same.
Right, right. And part of it too is when you get these young guys that are, they want to learn. When I started, it was probably 2 years before I really got taught a whole lot. I was treated like a mule for the first couple.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started my company, I didn't want it to be that way for the young guys that were coming up under me. I wanted them to learn. That didn't mean that they wouldn't be doing hard stuff, but I wanted them to learn right away in the beginning. Like, start learning. Yes, you're going to be carrying loads of studs. Yes, you're going to be digging holes, or you're going to be carrying bags of concrete. But in between those times, I want you learning and paying attention, and I'm going to teach you this stuff so that, by the time you're 2 years in, you've actually got some skills and some experience under your belt, versus being like 2 years of just doing grunt work and nobody looks at you or talks to you. So that was kind of something I wanted to do a little different than the way I was taught.
Well, yeah, because I feel like you can run a lot of people off that way too. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they are good. You've got to. To me, when you have people as assets, you've got to feed them. Like nobody wants to come in and just be that that bottom man on the totem pole every single day. Yes, they understand you got to pay your dues, but maybe the last hour of the day you grab that guy and say, "Hey, man, I'm doing this junction box. Come over, hang out with me. Let me work with me."
Yes.
Those kind of things go so far with people, because that you're investing in them, and they're like, "Oh man, he sees enough promise in me that he's showing me how to do this," and that kind of continues to grow. And then the next thing you've got a very happy and someone that's going to be very loyal, and 9 out of 10 times.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, there's, you're, like you said, you're investing in those guys, and that makes them feel like they're part of the team. So, you want your crew to be a team and feel part of a team. Even if one guy is brand new and he doesn't have any experience, you want him to feel welcome. And, it's hard because, blue collar trades, there's this like stigma that you got to like be rough and, hard on people and bully the new kid and all that. And, I'm not saying we don't play pranks on people and stuff. We do, but I'm not going to tolerate, bullying,
right,
on these new guys that are, are you trying to get people to come in the trades, or are you trying to scare them away? Right.
Exactly.
So, and there was stuff like that when I was in it where I was like, man, I don't know if I want to work with these jerks anymore. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And it's you just, whatever, it builds some character, you get tough and you get through it. But, I didn't want that to be part of our company culture, to where new guys are just getting bullied 24/7. It can rag on them some, it's part of the process of, being the new guy. But, we're going to send you off for fake tools. Sure. But we're laugh about it, and it's not all like, just yelling at the new kid. So, that's important.
I completely agree. All right, proud sponsor of the show, better damn well be Whiskey Bent BBQ. So this is a brand that Nicole and I started a little over a decade ago. You can find our rubs and seasonings in about 500 different retail locations throughout the U.S., Academy Sports, select Ace Hardwares, then obviously here at our store in Lakeland, Florida. If you want to go check it out, please feel free to. WhiskeyBentBBQ.com, and you can use my discount code OldBoyPodcast for 15% off. I got a quick topic change for you, and I know you're more into residential real estate investing, but having a guy that knows the business on the line, something that me and my buddies have been talking about with. Obviously, we have a big problem in this country, especially in some of the larger, more woke cities, where there is a shit ton of commercial real estate, right? That
Yep.
is just dormant.
Yep.
Josh, any idea how they fix that? Or is that where all these big companies are going to write it off and just kind of dump it? Like, do you have any thoughts on that? Like, how does that get normalized, or is it even normalizable?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. That's kind of like, I'm not much of an economist when it comes to big scale stuff like that. But I know there are people that are buying commercial real estate like that and then converting it into apartments and that kind of stuff. and we need housing. You know, this country is short on housing already, and with the amount of people they're just flooding in the gates, it's going to make us even shorter on housing. And affordable housing is tough for people, and I get
yes.
that. So a lot of this commercial real estate, I think, is going to get bought up and changed over to like apartments, because I think, you know, retail is slowly dying off. There's always going to be, you know, retail for certain things, but a lot of this stuff, like, you know, I don't know about you, but there's no malls around us anymore. You know, there are stores, of course, but a lot of that stuff is just kind of, you know, a lot, it's online, you know, so.
No, I've always said, like, and that's one of the things with us having a barbecue store here, you know, that we just always pound into our employees is like, people are coming here for an experience. Like, everything needs to be a consultative sale. As soon as they come in the door, hey, how you doing? You know, give them a couple of minutes. Anything you're looking for in particular? Hey, we've got everything open to taste over here, whether it be a rub, whether it be a sauce, you know, because those are the things that Amazon or Walmart.com can't do. But the day that you quit doing that is the day that you're going to run, you know, you're going to be just like the long ass list of retailers that are closing up shop.
Right. Well, I think what you guys are doing is right, is that you're niching down, right?
Yes.
So you're kind of niching into one spot, and there's always going to be a desire, a need for that, where people are like, hey, I want that one thing, and that's the one place to go get it if I want it right now, you know?
Yep.
And so I think that's good. I think the places that are, you know, outside of Walmart and Home Depot and Lowe's and those big companies where they sell lots of stuff, right? But a lot of these little stores, you know, that you sell a little bit of everything, they're hard to stay in business, man. Amazon's running a lot of them out of business. Walmart's running them out of business and has been for years and years. So yeah, I don't know that retail is ever going to blow back up the way it was, you know. I'm not an expert on that, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to, yeah, like I said, I wanted to talk about those large commercial buildings, because when me and my buddies were chatting, and, you know, like, my degree was in finance, and, you know, guys that understand it a little bit, but it was like, man, there are so many of these large buildings that they've got to think about converting to residential, like you said, just because there's a huge need. Yep. And I mean, let's be honest, some of those buildings have been sitting so long, you need to gut them anyway. Yeah. So why not repurpose them, you know? For
sure. And, you know, I talked to some people about that. There's a lot of people that believe, you know, when COVID happened and everybody was working from home, a lot of people still believe that office, you know, commercial office space is going to come back, and a lot of it has come back, right? But I think they realize that productivity is down when everybody works from home, or some instances, and maybe not everybody. Some people can work from home and be very productive.
Well, I also think it gets back to something we talked about earlier, Josh, and that's culture.
100%.
You know, how do you build culture over Zoom?
Yep. 100%.
Or Teams, or whatever you're using? You know what I mean? Like, it's very, very, very difficult. You know, and it's interesting to me. So I work for Traeger Grill Company. We were very much, as you know, before COVID, hey, as many people as possible that can work out of Salt Lake, love for them to walk out of Salt Lake. I'd been remote 12 years before I went to Traeger. I'm on the road 200 plus days a year. I'm not moving to Salt Lake. There was a handful of anomalies like that, and then obviously your regional sales team. But everybody else was in office Monday through Friday, like all things before COVID. Yep. Then it went to COVID, and obviously our sales blew up, you know, because people were staying at home, this and that. So we were adding a bunch of people. Well, now these people come in and they never knew the culture of how cool our office was. You get lunch every day. Right. You know, on the right day, about 4:00, you know, there'll be some cold beers and some Tito's pop out, and you know, you may take a cocktail to your 4:30 meeting. You know what I mean? Like just a cool place you wanted to work.
Yeah.
And so then built this awesome new amazing HQ that opened last December. And, you know, we were kind of in a building that was kind of an in-between. So remote kind of still stayed, you know, strong. And then we started opening this building up, you know, probably fourth quarter, we started socializing the third quarter of last year, and they're like only asking you to come in Monday through Wednesday. You know what I mean? And once again, still a free meal, like, whatever massage chairs, freaking video games, like play, you know what I mean? And people started bitching about it. I can't believe I got to come in Monday through Wednesday. I'm like, dude, that right there, if I was running this company, that'd be, you're gone. You like, if that's that big a problem to you to come in and socialize with people 3 out of 5 days and not in a shithole in this beautiful palace, then you know what? You're probably not a culture fit. That's what's really surprised me is how many people are so opposed to, and it's like, guys, it just needs to become a condition if you want to work here or not. Do you want to be here or do you not?
I'm just the kind of guy, like, I hate working from home, dude. I don't know. But I don't know. It's because I've been out in the field for so long.
Yeah.
And I get here and I sit at this desk. I'm like, dude, I don't want to keep that. She's like, I'm looking for any excuse, right? One of my first mentors called it creative avoidance. And I'm a pro. Right. That's what I creatively come up with something to do that will, I will be avoiding the one thing I really need to get done, which is probably paperwork. And I'll creatively come up with something like, you know what? I got to go to that other job site and check on that thing. I'm a pro at creative avoidance. And because I hate sitting up, I just do. I hate it so bad. So,
yep.
It is what it is.
One of the questions I have for you is, for people that are out there, because, a lot of guys will, go out and, have skills and will go out and, maybe flip 1 or 2 houses a year with a buddy and do it on the weekends. Any like just high level do's and don'ts, things to look for, that may be favorable, things that you've had issues with in the past? Like, I would have to guess, like, if you can stay away from buying places with septic, you'd probably prefer to, because that's just one more thing to have to mess with, but I could be completely wrong.
Yeah, no, actually that's a good one. We try to avoid septic if we can. I won't not take a deal if it's on septic, but if you're going to have something that's on well and septic, I always recommend shelling out a little bit of cash for a well and septic inspection before you close, and make it contingent on those inspections, because depending on where you are, a well and septic could run you 40, 50 grand between the two of them, or more or less, depends on where you're at. But that could kill your whole deal right there, And I've known guys that have lost money on deals because they didn't inspect those things. For us, a general rule, not always, and it depends on where you live, but we found that staying away from stuff that is like 1960 and older has been helpful, right? So like basically drywall, right? If the house has drywall, it's going to make your life so much easier than if it's all plaster.
So you don't want to fuck with any plaster of Paris? Come on.
The house I'm sitting in was full plaster, everything, lath and horsehair and all that. It was a disaster. Nobody wants to wear that stuff out, and it's hard to make it look good, if it's really old. So post drywall age is ideal, because then you're getting into, you're staying away from like galvanized plumbing and cast iron and old like knob and tube and old ungrounded wire. Those kinds of things all add up. But it's very dependent on where you live, because some places, like I'm from Maryland, and they didn't care too much about if you had like aluminum wire, you could deox, and on the wire, and you'd be fine. Like that, it was, as long as all the terminations were treated properly, it was fine. Here, you're not getting insurance with aluminum wire, right? So it really depends on the area. But yes, if you're brand new at it, a slightly newer house, 60s or 70s or newer, is going to be a little easier to deal with. Just easier remodel all around. So those are kind of generalities, of course. If depending on where you live, if you're up in like the Northeast, man, you're probably gonna have a lot of old houses, and that might just be old,
Yeah, and that to me sometimes too, like, and maybe I just, I could probably be wrong with this, because I've grown up here my whole life. I mean, obviously I've visited a lot of other places, but I've never owned a home outside of Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like some of those homes, like in the north, like the homes that get a lot of snow, like, I just feel like that's so much more of a beating on a house than like the thunderstorms and the sun exposure that we get.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and basements is a big one. And I almost forget about that because it's been 6 years since I've had to do a house with a basement. But man, when we were flipping houses up in Maryland, basements were a constant thing. We were constantly dealing with water in basements and making sure things got waterproofed. So we kind of made it a policy that like every basement, if it doesn't have a waterproofing system, we're putting one in because we would finish them, stud everything out and finish it for living space. But we had a few of them where like, by the time we finished it, it went on the market, went for sale. Then we had like wet carpet because it rained and things, like now I'm ripping stuff back out and putting this stuff in. And so, yeah, kind of just don't cheap out. If you're going to renovate a house for somebody, realize you're doing this for somebody and their family. So don't hide stuff behind the walls. Don't do a crap job. Like it's important to do it right. And that little bit of money you're saving is not worth, not being able to sleep at night or screwing over somebody else. So
absolutely. No, I completely agree. And at the end of the day too, like, like this is your career. Like that's your signature. You know what I mean? Like you trade, you always trade on your name and, you don't want somebody, getting opened up to, it may take them a year or two to find it, but they're going to find it. And they're going to be like, damn, man, I thought he did better work than that.
I know. Well, yeah. And that's the thing as a house flipper, your reputation you wouldn't think was actually that important because you're not going to have repeat customers, right? Pretty much when they buy a house from you, they're probably not buying another house from you.
Right.
A few years later. But what we noticed was real estate agents would pass our name around and they would say, hey, this is the best guy in our area. You want to buy one of his houses. And they would be reaching out and saying, hey, do you got anything else coming up? I want something in Niceville or Shalimar or Destin or wherever it is. And they would say, hey, keep us on your list. We want something that you've done. And so, that's important, man. It's having when you don't think you need it,
And for you, that's huge because that could be a difference in getting to cash in 10 days or 45, 60, 90 days.
Exactly.
Having that network of realtors that are dying to work with you and want one of your pieces of property because they know you did it right and they're going to have happy buyers.
Exactly. And if they're talking you up, they're talking the property up to their buyer, you have a higher chance of making more money as well. Because they're going to say, hey, look, we looked at 3 flips, 3 renovated properties, but this one's done by this guy. And I know that he does it right. And they're going to bid the highest amount. You know what I mean? It's best. Yep. It's best for your business and it's best all around. So, yeah.
No, I think that's a really, really valid point. As we're starting to wrap up on our time here, there's a question we ask every guest, and that is, now that you've been on the Old Boy podcast, we've got to chat. You see the kind of stuff we like to talk about. You got 1 or 2 folks that you recommend we reach out to and try to have a conversation with?
Oh man, I've got a huge list. All right, so the group, and I have been listening to the podcast for a little bit now, but I haven't listened to all of them. So, like, have you had? I mentioned E-Tile earlier. Have you had E-Tile on yet?
We have not.
Okay, man, he would be a cool one to listen to. And maybe a fun guy to have would be there's a couple of them that are Canadian guys. And I could give you 50.
We're Canuck friendly around here.
Yeah. So the Bearded Cider, he's a fun guy, man. I don't know if you follow him or not.
I do, but we haven't had him on, but I do follow him.
Yeah, he's cool, and his buddy is up there too. Tip Top Exteriors.
Love it.
He's a business owner. They're obviously do exteriors, and he does really good work, like high quality exterior work. And I think he's got a pretty good group of guys as well, some good crews, and he's doing a lot of work. So those are a couple that come to mind. But I could send you a list. There's a lot of good people I follow.
I love it. And then another thing I noticed, you've got that Trollco hat on. So talk to me a little bit about what it's like to work with Troll and how you came across, working with those dudes.
Oh man, I love Troll. So Trollco, the whole support blue collar thing, it's in line with everything I believe in. Right. So, it's cool to see a company, a business that really supports blue collar and is like blue collar proud, right? Because
Yes.
for, like in the beginning, we talked about how it was like you were only blue collar kind of by accident or because you were too lazy or too stupid to go to college, right? And that's really not the case at all. So
Not at all.
a company that supports that and has grown so much and done so much for the blue collar community, I think is awesome. So it's really cool to be, to be part of that gang. And of course, I love the apparel. I love everything. It's like the most comfortable. You can't tell, but this one's hard to read. But I'm wearing a Troll Coast shirt too. It's the most comfortable gear. It's well made, and I get comments on it all the time. Working with public. So.
And it just holds up. And like, this is one of my favorite, like, I just love walking through the airport with a support blue collar shirt on, because the amount of people that comment on it's always 2-3 people every trip, like, dude, love your shirt, or man, that's awesome. You know what I mean? Like, or go blue collar, you know what I mean? Like, that's rad. You know what I mean? And once again, like, as we're trying to get more kids and these next generations into the trades, what better for them to see somebody wearing proudly? Hey, I'm perfectly fine being blue collar. I'm proud of it.
That's right. Make blue collar great again, right? I mean,
there we go.
That's what Troll is doing. They were making it cool to be blue collar. I mean, not single handedly, of course, but they're a big part. Like, hey, like, we can do this. We can be proud of it, and you can earn a great living. You can own a business, or you can work for somebody else and make really, really good money working with your hands. And why that ever went away, it didn't really go away, but it became this thing, this stigma. And it's cool to see that kind of diminishing and Troll kind of being at the point of the spear, at making it exciting to be blue collar again,
No, I completely, that's one of the reasons that, when I got introduced to the company and had the opportunity to work with them, it's like, dude, why would you not? Like, this is totally our people, like what we're all about. Like, me and Tim thought it was just a no-brainer because they stood for everything that we stood for. You know what I mean?
Dude, 100%, man. Yeah, great people too. Like, the group of, I guess you would say assets, the group of guys that are working with Troll are awesome. Good people, just down to earth people. And then, of course, the guys at the top, Jason and those guys are just really cool. They're down to earth people, and they listen to the blue collar, to the blue collar group, and they're doing it right, in my opinion.
Well, and they're just thoughtful people too. I have to tell you a quick story about Jason. So Jason and his wife and 2 boys came down to Florida here a couple months ago. We hung out a lot, and they were on vacation, but we spent a lot of time together. And we're having dinner one night, his family, and then my mom, my dad, my niece. And me and Jason knew about this just as we were getting to know each other. We both were very fond of baseball cards. And I happened to grow up with Lance Necro, which is Joe Necro's son, which Phil Necro's his brother. And we were just talking about, we had collected all the Phil Necro and Joe Necro cards that had ever been printed except for Phil's rookie. And my dad, and 45 years of being a truck driver, just goes, I was never going to spend that much money on a baseball card. What's going to happen? And ain't no way. And so sure enough, a couple weeks go by, Jason's like, hey, check your UPS mailbox. I sent something to you. So today, took it over to my dad. It was a Phil Necro rookie card.
Dude, that is incredible, man.
Yeah, and it was just, it meant so much to my dad and to me. But like, once again, just being thoughtful, and that's the kind of people you want to be around. You know what I mean? Like, just super thoughtful, just good folks. When you kind of get to this point in life where you can kind of pick the people you want to spend your time with. That's the kind of people I want to spend my time with, not because of the monetary value of the card or this and that, but just the thought, what I mean? And just that it meant something, and obviously in turn meant something to us. And that's kind of people I want to work with.
That's awesome, man. And dude, I totally agree. I mean, they just seem, I haven't spent time with Jason, but I've talked to him, and they just seem like that type of people. They're just good. They're old boys, right? They're good.
Absolutely, old boy. That's right. But that's the other thing too, and I've mentioned this a couple times on the podcast. And the reason I think the brand is so successful and continues to grow is they have an amazing feedback loop. Like they really let the community curate what the social page looks like, what they listen to feedback on, where do they need to be investing next in either apparel or designs, or what does the community want? You know what I mean? And that, to me, that's the way businesses need to be ran. Not in boardrooms trying to predict what the community wants. Fucking engage the community and find out what they want and then go do it.
Exactly. Yeah. No, that you're 100% right. And they do a great job of that. And, there's some cool things coming. I've been able to be, I'm thankful, and I've been able to be on the inside scoop of some things that are on their way out, on their way to the troll store. And there's cool stuff coming for sure.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to when they can share it with everybody. And then once again, Josh, before we cut out here, thank you so much for your time. It's been really, really awesome. Tell folks where they can find you, any other people that you work with that you want to mention or talk about. And we'll just wrap this thing up, man. But it's been a really, really enjoyable conversation, and love what you've done with the remodeling business, then the real estate business, back now also in the remodeling business. So I love it. You've got a lot of good stuff on your plate, and really enjoy seeing how you get your family engaged in it. And it's just a great story, and really just so proud of your success.
I appreciate that, man. And yeah, I appreciate likewise, dude. It's been cool hanging with you. And yeah, you can find me primarily at on Instagram, Josh_of_all trades, Josh of all trades. And but I'm also on Facebook, and I don't know if you want to give out emails or anything like that. But yeah, Instagram's probably the easiest way to get me. I check all my DMs, so I don't. If you DM me and you're a real person and not a scam, I will DM you back. I answer everybody. So happy to have conversations. And so that's it, man. So.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, I'm going to continue. I wish you all the continued success. And next time I get up in that Destin way, I'll let you know, and we can at least grab a drink and shake each other's hand and tell a couple stories.
Sounds great, brother.
Awesome, brother. Take care. Hey, guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode just as much as I did. Josh was a wealth of knowledge, had a ton to share. And until next time, you guys take care. We'll see you soon. Thank you so much for listening to the Old Boy Podcast. Please subscribe, like, set your notifications, whatever you got to do to make sure you're getting the latest episodes. Also, feel free to go back, whether it be YouTube, Spotify, Apple, get some of the past episodes, check those out, and always feel free to check out our socials, Old Boy Podcast. Thank you so much.